Okay,
My name's Blake.
do you want to go to war, Balaki? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is back at the home studio, the Clearwater, Florida studio, no longer in Los Angeles. Wow, guys, it is good to be home. And honestly, thank God I came home when I did, because not only is the jury in the Danny Masterson case still deliberating as of right now, but I read today, I didn't even know this. I read today that if they don't finish deliberating today, tomorrow is only a half day in court, and the following day, everyone has off anyway. So, I mean, guys, they could come back in the next 10 minutes. They could not even come back by the end of this week. And I couldn't just continue to stay there in Los Angeles. I will say this. If they come back with a guilty verdict, I'm jumping right back on a plane to LA for the celebration party. I promise you that. But that is not the subject of today's video. But you'll notice I did go back to the old school Ron intro, since I'm no longer reporting for SPTV live from Los Angeles in the Danny Masterson case. That's why I decided to go back to old school Ron. We're here to talk about Scientology private investigators. Oh, Lord Almighty. A former Scientology private investigator has revealed more information about exactly how they went about surveilling Amy Scobie and Matt Pesch when Amy and Matt were living in Clearwater, Florida, which is where I live now. Before we even get to that new reveal, let me share with you some Scientology PI stuff just fresh from this morning. This is literally based on fresh information from a phone call that I received this morning. Let me just share this with you. Joseph Gill of Gill & Associates out of Philadelphia is the latest low-life private investigator to engage in witness intimidation tactics on Scientology's behalf. He's been hired to harass and intimidate an elderly former Scientologist, former Sea Org member, actually, in a long-term care facility and her family. Let's make him famous. Mr. Joe Gill, welcome to SPTV. It is your debut. It's a shame his business rating on Google has dropped significantly this morning. 19, almost 20,000 views. Honestly, not great for Twitter. Not great for Twitter, but that's okay. Just kind of given Joseph Gill some of the business there. And yet, like I said, this is actually not what today's video about. What today's video is about. Let me share with you the main event. Okay, here we go. This is an essay, a short, that's not very long, written by a former Scientology private investigator named Alana Warren. Kudos to her for coming forward. Alana Warren is actually one of many women who were recruited to work for a main Scientology private investigator named Dwayne Powell. He impregnated many of these women. Yeah, I mean, it's a really strange, Dwayne Powell, and the story of Dwayne Powell is a really bizarre story. And Alana Warren wants to let the world know some of what was going on. Okay, so let's just read this, guys. Alana Warren is back with even more details about what it was like to work as a private investigator for Scientology in Florida around the year 2010. Previously, she told us some details about her task of following Mike Rinder and Christy Colbrin and the people who came to their house. But before that, she was assigned to keep a close watch on former Scientology Sea Org staff officials. Okay, it's hard for me to highlight this stuff, so I'm just going to keep the current paragraph at the top of the screen. Before that, she was assigned to keep a close watch on former Scientology Sea Org officials Amy Scobie and Matt Pesch. We asked her for some details on that, and we got a response from Amy herself. When I first started working, the response from Amy comes at the very end. Here is this is Alana Warren. When I first started working, we were following Matt and Amy. We stayed in the Ebb Tide Resort off of Bay Esplanade in Clearwater Beach. I know exactly what that is. Our motel room had a direct view of the backside of Matt and Amy's apartment. We could see right through their balcony sliding door with the video camera. It was set up looking through the kitchen window of our room. There was a computer monitor connected to it displaying the feed from the video camera. It was also hooked up to a DVR system so that everything recorded could be saved and sent to the Church of Scientology. Either I or the other intern would stay in the motel room while Dwayne Powell, Terry Roffler, and the other one of us would be positioned in our rental vehicles, waiting for them to leave. We weren't allowed to park our rental cars at the motel. We had to park down the street. So once Amy and Matt left for the day, we had to quickly grab our gear and run down the street to get in our vehicle to join the others in mobile surveillance. Even though we did this, the case was considered overt. The church, or as I was told, the quote unquote corporate client, wanted them to know they were being followed. Dwayne said the plan was to run them out of town. He tried to accomplish this by ruining their business. Matt and Amy ran a thrift furniture business out of a warehouse. Dwayne would go on Craigslist and buy as many things as he could before Matt could, and then sell them himself. He had me keep records of all the stuff he bought and relisted, some of it on Craigslist. When Matt did sell something, one person would stay back and watch Amy at the warehouse while the others followed Matt to the delivery. At the time, I was still in school. Sometimes I would drive down there, work 10 to 12 hours, and then have to drive back home in the middle of the night because I had class the next day. In the beginning of the case, Dwayne actually had me stay in the apartment below Matt and Amy. He wanted to know if it was possible to hear them talking. I wasn't able to hear anything, though, so I went back to staying at the Ebb Tide. I'm surprised they didn't drill a hole in the ceiling and plant a listening device in the floor or something. I mean, maybe that's a little too obvious to be standard operating procedure, PI work. But, what do I know, guys? I grew up in a cult. Even though this case was overt, we still switched out our rental cars often. When we got a new rental car, we'd have to meet up with Dwayne down the street from the Avis outlet we were using. He had a do-it-yourself window tint. He personally tinted all the windows on the rental cars. Alana Warren. Okay, and this is the note from Amy Scobie. Thank you for this additional information. All of the tax-exempt money that Scientology has spent trying to intimidate and keep us silent has been a complete and utter failure. And they have never chased us out of any town, including Clearwater, where we celebrated Mother's Day with Matt's family. Again, we are happy that Alana has come forward to shed light on the underbelly of Scientology's fair game tactics against those standing up to this criminal cult. We will never run from Scientology and will not stop exposing their destructive policies, practices, and abuse of people's human rights until it is brought to an end. Truly incredible stuff. I'll tell you, one of the things that I found striking about this information was the overlap between the fact that it was an overt surveillance project. Scientology wanted these Amy and Matt to know that they were being surveilled. The overlap between that and the fact that they still undertook procedures, it seemed, to kind of conceal the full extent of what they were doing. And I'm not quite sure what to think about that or how it might relate to the PI surveillance that I've been experiencing in Clearwater, Florida. So a few weeks ago, you guys who watch a lot of my videos saw the video I posted a few weeks ago of me busting a Scientology PI surveilling my house about a block down from where I actually live. Now, that event of me actually busting the PI on camera was a culmination of reports that I'd been getting for many, many weeks. Not just reports, but verified interactions with police that these guys were surveilling me at both of my properties. And yet, even despite getting these reports, there was still a part of me that just didn't really believe it. It must be a misunderstanding, until I busted the guy live on camera. Now, the fact that the guy would park an entire block down from my house still left me with the impression that, oh, this is supposed to be a covert surveillance project. They don't seem to really want me to know that they're there. And yet, when I read this write-up from Alana Warren, I was like, oh, shit, no. Just because they want you to know that they're there doesn't mean they're going to park right outside your freaking house. I mean, they'd be doing me a favor if they did that, because I would just bust them every single day. Also, the PIs that were surveilling me in Clearwater, Florida, the police had intervened several times. So the PIs knew that they were sort of made, and yet they continued to be there. I still don't fully understand why they park a block down. Maybe it's because they know they would be doing me a favor. They know that they'd be just making it easy for me to mess with them. Maybe it's a self-preservation thing. But there was another indicator just recently while I was in Los Angeles that it was, in fact, an overt surveillance project. And that is that while I was in LA, I started to get phone calls from my neighbors who know exactly who I am and my history and all the Scientology stuff and about my channel, I started to get calls from my neighbors that a private detective, they'd received a call from a private detective asking about me. And I was like, oh yeah, baby, it's on. Now the PI did make a pretty significant error in that one of my neighbors who he called works in a secure unit at MacDill Air Force Base. And this person was actually in a meeting with their colonel when they received this, what has been described as a harassing call from a private investigator. So that PI's name and information was then provided to the Special Investigations Unit at MacDill Air Force Base. And that PI probably, I don't know what the result is of something like that, but I'm sure it's not just a walk in the park. And also I got the PI's phone number and I tried to call the PI myself just to have a little bit of fun with them. And I wasn't able to get through. They would not answer the phone. And so clearly they are currently engaging in an overt surveillance project, not just on me. Like I said, I got this phone call from this contact in Pennsylvania. And I received a phone call last night from some contacts in Australia. You guys might know there's currently a very serious trafficking lawsuit going on against Scientology in Australia. There is confirmed overt Scientology PI activity going on right this second in California, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Australia. Let's not underestimate what a multi-billion-dollar human trafficking cult will do when they have near unlimited funds and near unlimited human capital resources as well. So, I know I tend to take things very lightly and a bit nonchalantly and thumb my nose at Scientology and their goons and everything, but they don't do nothing. And there's going to be a lot more to come on that in a video I'm trying to record later today and get out by the end of the day. So that's all I got on this particular issue. Let me check the super chats real quick. Craig Solomon, Aaron just started a bike ride. Thanks. All right, Craig, do you listen to the YouTubes on audio only on your bike ride? That's cool. Are you biking outside, or is it a stationary bike? Are you watching the YouTubes on the TV? I wonder which one it is. Jerry Hack says, AA Ron, do you think that Jenna Elfman, Nancy Cartwright, Tom Cruise et al. Know that the Church of Scientology is only 20,000 to 30,000 members? Men with beards are really men without beards with beards. So, Jerry, this is actually a really good question. I believe that the answer to your question is no. They do not know that the Church of Scientology is only 20,000 to 30,000 members. David Miscavige is really good in the Scientology propaganda videos of making it seem like Scientology is just absolutely exploding everywhere you are not. If you're a Scientologist in the United States, I'll tell you, you think Scientology in Mexico is booming. You think Scientology in Russia is exploding. You think Scientology was taking over South Africa with the kind of propaganda that gets put out. And the Scientologists in Mexico and in Russia and in South Africa, when they see the kind of information that gets put out on the, Scientology's propaganda lines, they're a little too embarrassed and actually scared, because you're not allowed to say things like this, to tell anyone and be like, oh boy, we don't know what they're talking about. Like when I was still in Scientology, when I still worked for the Scientology organization in Philadelphia, because of the time that I had spent doing my Scientology training in Clearwater, Florida, I knew very well a good number of Scientology staff members from every Scientology organization in the world, because I was on a training program where staff members from every organization in the world were on that training program with me, and we were on that training program for several years. When I returned to Philadelphia, and the Scientology events, there's this event that Scientology holds. It's called the L. Ron Hubbard Birthday Game. And all the Scientology orgs in the world compete for who can put up the best stats from, March 13th to March 13th every year, because March 13th is L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. And these Mexican orgs in Mexico City, they're called like ODD, ITD, IFADE. There was like 3 or 4 or 5 big orgs in Mexico. We thought they were big orgs. They would always win the birthday game. Now, you have to understand, in order to win the birthday game, you have to be the most expanding Scientology organization in the entire world. And these guys would win the birthday game year after year. I went back to Clearwater a few years later and ran into my friend, Hector Cruzado. He was the executive director of this org. And I said, holy shit, dude, like, you guys must be, how many staff do you have? How many auditors do you have? How many hours of auditing you guys do in a week? How many students do you have? he was embarrassed to answer my questions. I'm just using this as because he wasn't allowed to say, our org is smaller than yours. We don't know what the hell they're talking about. He wasn't allowed to say that. So he was kind of coy. He was kind of shy. He was a little reticent. And I didn't realize it at the time. I wasn't aware enough at the time to understand what was going on, that he was simply not allowed to admit that even they had no idea how it is they were being given this award, what it meant, the fact that they were this tiny little organ, they're winning year after year. Anyway, it was very, very strange. So that's a lot of words to just say. I truly believe that Jenna Elfman, Nancy Cartwright, and even Tom Cruise has no idea there's only about 20 to 30,000 Scientologists in the entire world. Thank you so much. Love the question. Rusty, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Cassandra Reiners. Hey, Ron, I so miss you when you don't post. Welcome back home. I did take a full day off yesterday, guys. I don't know how the jet lag kicked my butt so much. My sleep schedule is already sort of unpredictable enough. I'm kind of a night owl. That I always expect jet lag not to kick my butt. I got a ton of sleep on Saturday night and I was still exhausted on Sunday. So I took yesterday off. But look, now that I'm back, I'm also back in business. I mean, I got a lot of stuff to post, a lot of stuff to talk about. So stay tuned, Cassandra. You will not have to wait. Okay, Catherine S. Think power. I think you mean missed withhold. MWH. In Scientology, MWH means missed withhold. A withhold is something bad that you've done that you don't want anyone to know about. That's called a withhold. And then a missed withhold is when someone gives you the idea or the impression that maybe they know what you did, but you're not sure if they know. You're wondering if they know. Like, do they know? And L. Ron Hubbard says that missed withhold creates a lot of very negative responses in an individual. So think power of missed withhold. I think they want you to wonder. I think you're referring to wonder whether or not you're being followed. Is that what you're talking about? And that could be. But remember, an overt investigation is when they don't want you to wonder. Oh, but if you're talking about like, are they down the street? Why are they parking all the way down the street? Maybe that's because they want me to wonder. That's totally, totally possible. James C. They keep at distance because to avoid stalking charge. James C. Believe it or not, there are different laws, or I guess you could say freedoms, that are afforded to licensed private investigators. They're licensed on a state-by-state basis. There is nothing illegal about a private investigator posting up outside your house and just watching you from a public street 24/7. The proper etiquette is for them to call the local police department, identify themselves, their certificate, what do you call it? Their license, their license number and everything. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm working on a surveillance job. I'm going to be out here. The reason it's considered a courtesy to the local police is because people are going to inevitably call the police about you. And the police would rather you save them a trip if they're coming out, So now these particular private investigators who've been surveilling me in Clearwater, I will tell you, one of the reasons that the police got so pissed off at them is because they repeatedly refused, declined, neglected to do that favor to the cops. And my neighbors would call the cops all the time on these guys. And the cops would come out and they would identify themselves as a PI. They wouldn't actually admit that they were surveilling me. They would say, oh, we're working on a custody case. I mean, they're not obligated to tell you who their actual client is. So I don't think the stalking charge really has nothing to do with it, to be perfectly honest. All right, everybody. Well, I got 2 more videos I'm trying to get done, and that's before the 7 p.m. SPTV Monday Night Live stream that we're doing this evening. So thanks for hanging in there, guys. Thank you to everyone who's watching. Hey, if you're watching right now, you haven't hit that like button, please hit that like button. It actually does help, believe it or not. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click